I Am Dynamite, A Life of Friedrich Nietzsche by Sue Prideaux. Beyond the mustache, what does most people know about this troubled soul? Nietzsche is probably the most influential modern Western thinker who gave us ideas such as the Übermensch, resentment, and eternal reoccurrence. He pulled the corpse of God from the shadows of the back alley into the town center for all to behold. He wrote boldly, and he picked a fight with almost every segment of society. Hi and welcome to the Booklab. I'm Björn, and this is a place where we bring you the best book recommendations when it comes to philosophy, psychology, human nature and human potential. And today we're talking about I Am Dynamite, a biography of the life of Friedrich Nietzsche. And Nietzsche is a person that I've seen quoted in a lot of books throughout my reading career. It felt like a couple of years ago that he was quoted in every other book that I read. I don't know if that says more about my reading habits and the books I choose, or the importance of the ideas that he presented in his philosophy, but it got me to investigate him further. And after reading The Birth of Tragedy, his first book, and also getting through Thus Spoke Zarathustra, I felt like having a closer look at his life and read a biography about him was in order. This book gives us a closer look at the man behind the philosophy, his life and his ideas, from his pious childhood to becoming a young professor. He became a professor at age 24, to his descent into madness. And it also tries to untangle his often misused and misunderstood philosophy. From an early age, Nietzsche struggled with bad health. He had terrible episodes of headaches with vomiting and eye aches that could last for weeks, and during this period he had to keep himself in a darkened room. Here's one description of one of those ghastly episodes during his school days. Quote, "He was put to bed in a darkened room with leeches fastened on his earlobes to suck blood from his head. Sometimes they were also applied to his neck. He hated the treatment." Leeches on the ears, and he didn't like it. No shit, I wouldn't either. And the doctors, they didn't have much hope for him. They predicted total blindness. But what could have been a crushing fate actually made him more determined to do something of himself. Quote, "Spurred on by physical limitations and gloomy prognostications, he seized every productive moment. His appetite for work was prodigious." Nietzsche's struggle with illness reminds me of Beethoven, who, when he started to lose his hearing, had a prolific creative output, and he worked in a frenzy to squeeze out every last ounce of music out of his genius. As a young philology professor, Friedrich Nietzsche developed a strong and passionate relationship with the famous composer Richard Wagner. The two were pretty much BFFs until one day when their relationship suddenly turned sour. Nietzsche's sister Elizabeth fabricated the popular idea that Wagner and Nietzsche ended their relationship over differences over the religiosity of the great composer's latest libretto, but in fact it was because of a very different reason. Nietzsche had found out that Wagner had raised the suspicion that the professor might be masturbating a little bit too much in a letter to his private doctor. Wagner was worried about his friend, and he knew, like most people knew, that playing with oneself is associated with the type of eye problems that Nietzsche was suffering from. It was when Nietzsche found out about this well-intended but crushing correspondence that the relationship between the two men that had once been so passionate came to a breaking point. So maybe mental masturbation wasn't Nietzsche's only pastime. Nietzsche's words, "God is dead," stated the obvious that his contemporaries refused to acknowledge. The Enlightenment and the scientific revolution had killed God, and without religion and belief in the divine, there was no longer any moral authority to the laws upon which Western civilization was built upon. What happens to humans in a world without meaning? Does a vacuum of meaning occur? What will fill that vacuum? Nietzsche saw his contemporary go on, live their lives as usual, regardless of this inauthenticity. Quote, "Given the power to live without religion, man must take responsibility for his own actions." So what to do about all of this? Well, first, man must become himself. Quote. Secondly, amor fati. He must accept what life brings, avoiding the blind alleys of self-hatred and resentment. Then finally, man can overcome himself to find true fulfillment as the Übermensch, the man at peace with himself. Finding joy in his earthly purpose, rejoicing in the sheer magnificence of existence, and content with the finitude of his morality. End quote. A person in the comment fields once said that usually the philosophy is much more interesting than the life of the philosopher, and that rings true for Nietzsche too. Honestly, he's portrayed like an insecure and socially awkward nerd, but with an inflated ego. But even though his life is quite uneventful, I think it's worth your time to explore his philosophy. And reading a biography like this provides a great map for how his ideas evolved over time. It also gives a sense for the time and place they gave birth to his philosophy. It's a well-written, engaging and insightful biography, and if you're at all interested in the crisis of meaning that we see played out in different shapes and forms throughout contemporary society, then Nietzsche's philosophy is definitely something that you should check out. It's also a book that led me to read other great works. I was inspired to read Schopenhauer, so I picked up on the suffering of the world. I also read Dostoevsky's House of the Dead, which had a big impact on Nietzsche. And it's one of my favorite parts of reading books, is how one book leads to the next. And I'm super grateful for reading this and getting inspired to pick up those great books as well. Check this one out if you're interested in philosophy. It is a good biography. And I have a few upcoming books, but first, like, subscribe, share this with a friend, press the bell so you get notified when a new video is up. I put up a new video every Thursday. First up, we have something I just started, a classic, The Life Cycle Completed by Erik H. Erikson. I've just started, so I don't have much to say about it. It's a psychology book about the phases of life. Review coming up soon. It's a pretty short one, so it won't take me long. I'm also reading Woke Incorporated, Inside the Social Justice Scam. Not really the type of book we cover here on this channel, but I might put up a review of it anyway. It's an interesting palate cleanser book for me. That's all for me. Have a good one. See you next week. Björn out.